I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have any comments from the audience? I believe we do have a correction to the agenda and/or consent calendar.
Yes, the agenda item that's being proposed is to appoint a alternative voting delegate on behalf of the district to Aqua. This just came to our attention because Dave Peterson's not going to be available to do that voting for this upcoming meeting in December. So the requested board action will be to adopt a resolution appointing an alternate voting delegate on the district's behalf to Aqua.
And then Gary, we'll put this at number 5 or?
Yeah, the
7C?
7C.
I guess 7C, yes.
7C?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then we would
move to adopt that by a unanimous vote. That change to
the change to the agenda, and that would be prior to the adoption of the consent calendar. Okay. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the amended agenda. I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
And then that would bring us to adoption of the consent calendar. I'll move adoption of the consent calendar.
Second.
And that motion passed unanimous. That motion passed unanimous.
Okay. It looks like we have a presentation for the fiscal year financial statement audit.
Yeah, we have Justin Williams here from Mandy and Nelson CPAs, and they're the firm that completed our fiscal year 21 audit this year.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Will this, that advance this? Or?
I'll put you in that presentation up here real quick.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm here to present the audit results for the year ended June 30th, 2021. One thing I'd like to remind the board, as well as management, the financial statements themselves are the responsibility of management. And it's our job as the auditors to come in and form an independent opinion on those financials to let the reader know whether or not they're fairly stated. So the financial statement audit. Our audit process, we break up the audit into 2 different phases, our interim phase and our year-end phase. Traditionally, we call it field work because we're out either in the offices doing in the field, but this year and last year we did the procedures remotely. So the interim phase was in June. During this time of the audit, prior to your year-end, a lot of what we concentrate our work on is your internal controls and your processes. And so we look at the different processes, we perform tests of those controls to make sure they're operating as they were designed. If we're going to have findings or recommendations, it's usually as a result of this time of the audit, where we make recommendations on how to improve your controls. And here's a list there of some different areas that we look at. We look at revenue, cash receipts, what processes and controls we have in place there. Look at cash disbursements and expenses, check signers, approvals of POs. We're looking at the different controls and approvals that are in place there. HR and payroll is another big part where we pull samples of new hires, terminations. We look at your payroll process, make sure it's occurring timely, being properly approved, people are getting paid the correct rates. And then the financial reporting is how all of those different areas are accounted for in your accounting system and then roll up into the financial statements, which is what we form our opinion on. And if there were any findings that we had in the prior year, it's usually we'll make sure that those were implemented during this phase. Once your books are closed and ready for us to be audited or ready for us to do our audit, we come back out, or in this case, did it remotely in September, the year-end phase of the audit. I think that's what most people think of when you think of an audit, because it's the testing of the numbers. We're testing the year-end balances, testing activity throughout the year. Some examples there of the different types of tests we do. Cutoff testing, that's a big one. Oftentimes, agencies are good at doing day-to-day accounting and things throughout the year. When you come to a year-end phase or reporting time, so this is June 30th, different types of entries have to be done, accrual entries and different work, so there's a little bit higher risk. So what we do is we look at transactions that occur on both sides of that June 30th year-end to make sure things are being recorded in the proper period. We send out confirmations, third-party confirmations to financial institutions who get to reply directly back to us, and so we're confirming your bank balances, investment balances. Another big test is our analytical review procedures. In those, we'll do ratio analysis, we'll look at the average salary, we'll look at trends with billing rates, the amounts of revenue that have come in month by month compared to the prior year. So it's a higher level look at the different numbers, and if anything unusual comes out, then we investigate that further. Also do detailed transaction testing, and that's really selecting samples and tracing those transactions that are in your accounting records down to the supporting documentation, invoices, et cetera, to make sure that they're recorded properly. So as a result of those different audit procedures, in this case we have 4 different reports that we issued. The first one, our audit opinion, that's the main one, that's our independent auditor's report. The next 2, government audit standards report is your yellow book report, and then we have 2 different letters, communication to those charged with governance, the board, and then a management report. So go over the results of each of these. First one here, independent auditor's report. Like I said, that's the main one. That's our opinion on your financials, to let the reader know whether or not they're correct or fairly stated. And we have an unmodified opinion here, which is what you want. That's considered to be a clean opinion. So the financials that we spend about a page and a half to tell you that, but it's really that the financials as presented are fairly stated in all material respects. So definitely good news. Next report, our government audit standards report, also known as the yellow book report. The main thing to know about this, the majority of the government audit standards apply to us as the auditors. We have to, when we're auditing a governmental agency, we have to take additional professional education. There's different requirements on us, but as it applies to you, if we encounter any deficiencies in your internal controls, we're required to put them in one of 3 categories: material weakness, significant deficiency, or control deficiency. If they're a material weakness or a significant deficiency, which are the ones that are a bigger deal, they're required to go in this particular report. If they don't rise to that level of control deficiency, we can issue them on a separate management letter. So in this case, as you can see, no material weaknesses, significant deficiencies, or compliance exceptions. The next letter we issue, we call it the SAS 114 Statement of Auditing Standard 114 Communication to the Board letter. In addition to our audit opinion, there's other things we're required to communicate to you, and this letter accomplishes that. Nothing major in here, no new accounting policies this year. We're required to let you know if your financials have estimates. All financials have some sort of estimate. Depreciation, in this case, just by its nature, is considered an estimate, and the net pension liability is also an estimate based on the actuarial study. If we have any difficulties, disagreements with management on accounting treatment or anything like that, or delays in the audit, we would also let you know, and there were none. Also a big one here, we're also required to let you know if we have any audit adjustments. What that means is we're providing with your trial balance, essentially the books of record, to do the audit at the beginning. If during the course of the audit we notice any errors or anything, then we'll propose an adjustment to management. Almost always, even in the best audits, we at least have a couple. And in this case, there were none, which is very impressive. Definitely good news. Final letter we issued, the report to management, no items to note this year. Again, really good news. We issued it to say that there were no material weaknesses, and we also let you know the prior year we had one that had been paid for a couple of years. It was the board of directors, the financial reports that you get quarterly. Last year, one of them was missed, and it's basically due to the timing of the audit that wasn't being done. But I'll make sure to correct that this year, so we can get rid of that fund. So in summary, with unmodified, clean opinion, no material weaknesses, compliance exceptions, or significant deficiencies, no management letter comments, or no audit adjustments. So that's as good as it gets. And not all of my presentations are like this. So this is very rare. Out of 130, 140 audits that we do, so I would say maybe 2 or 3 end up with essentially a perfect audit result. So that really says a lot about the quality of the staff you have getting. They do a great job of getting everything for us, so we should be commended for that. So we do a lot of, as they know, we pull a lot of samples, look at a lot of different items, and so to end up with really good results like that is definitely commendable. Any questions for me?
I just would like to say this is probably the 10th one of these kind of reports this year I've been listening to this, and it's always consistently the same. And so I think we should give, yeah. So it's always pleasant for me to hear this. And there's definitely consistency in the department.
I want to thank Justin and his team because we have a great working relationship with you guys. And then, of course, Debbie and Greg back there and their team for the excellent day-to-day work, which allows for these type of audit results.
Very good. Thank you for the report. We really appreciate the oversight on the board. We kind of fly above this stuff a little bit, don't get down into the numbers and the procedures, and it's really good to have that second look. And I know it's a requirement, but for me, it gives me a lot of comfort in the financial management, and I really do appreciate the good work that the staff has done to produce or to result in such a clean report. So thank you all very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Julie, you're up for the Tahoe Heavenly Water System improvement.
I didn't prepare myself as well this time to hobble up. Apologize. Takes me a minute. Good afternoon. I'm here to talk about the Keller Heavenly Water System project and to request additional funding for continued design on this project. We've been working with Far West Engineering out of Reno for about 5 years on the alternatives development and then into design and construction of this project. We are currently under construction on both phases 1 and 2 and are preparing to bid phase 3, which is the final phase of the system improvements project. And we're hoping to hit the street late winter, in the early February kind of time frame. So I'm here today because Trevor is on vacation, but we want to get the consultant moving forward in his absence because it is sort of a short time frame for finalizing these phase 3 plans for bidding. The scope of work that we're asking you to authorize today has a little bit of design work on the original concept for phase 3 because we have been working on that over the last couple of years. So we're really just bringing that original scope to the finish line with the scope of work. But we are also adding a couple of new components that were not originally part of the phase 3 scope. The construction bids for phases 1 and 2 came in a little bit under the engineer's estimate, and so we have some additional funding left, and we want to be able to utilize that because we have an SRF loan for a larger amount. We had a Keller booster station upgrades project on the horizon for about 3 years from now. And because it's within the same project area that had already been environmentally cleared for the SRF loan, we're just going to pull that forward and bid it now and take advantage of the remaining funds on that SRF loan. So we need to design the Keller booster upgrades. The other piece of work that we're adding to their scope is a access road for the Lookout tank. This was one of the tanks that was impacted by the Caldor fire, in that the dozer line that went behind the west side of town obliterated our access road. Cal OES and Cal Fire have come in, and Forest Service as well. I think those 3 parties have come in and made some repairs to that road. But this is the second time in 15 years that access road has been destroyed. And so we are asking them to design us a road that actually goes up our own parcel, doesn't go behind all the houses, much more direct access. And we intend to bid that with the phase 3 of Keller. The reason why that is a natural fit with this design is that we're intending to use a construction method that is very similar to what we have at the Keller tank site. Kind of an interlocking block, durable, good for erosion control, and very steep access, which this will be. So, yeah, since it's similar to what they were already preparing, we thought this would be a good match. And then finally, the scope of work takes us through construction management and closeout. So we'll provide as-needed services during construction if we need help navigating submittals or answering questions from the contractor, and then they will prepare us a set of as-built plans at the end. Any questions about the scope? All right. Well, the phase 3 construction, as I mentioned, will it'll be bid in late winter. We expect that they will begin construction in May, and we are actually going to give them 2 seasons to complete the work, with the addition of the Keller booster station, understanding a lot of lead times, and having kind of a log jam at the actual tank site right now. We'll get them started in the summer of 2022. And then the contractors will finish up in 23. So, with that, I'll read the requested action, if you like. Approve Far West engineering proposal for design modifications, Keller booster pump station improvements design, Lookout tank access road design, and Keller Heavenly Water System Improvements Project Phase 3 bidding and construction management services, and authorize the general manager to execute task order number 10B in amount not to exceed $120,508.
I'll make that motion.
Second. We have a motion and a second. That motion passes unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that brings us to payment of claims. I'll move approval of payment of claims in the amount of $1,018,790.86.
Okay, we have a motion and a
Okay, so that brings us to item 7C. So Gary, are you going to help us through this?
Yes, prior to the board meeting, we were discussing with Director Peterson the need to have an alternate appointed to AQUA for their upcoming voting. Director Peterson is going to be unavailable, as I understand, to do that. And I think the person that we were thinking of from Director Peterson's recommendation was to appoint our general manager as the alternate to vote in his absence. There is registration form that needs to be completed. It will has to be submitted by November 29th to AQUA. And so the idea today would be is to have the board adopt a resolution appointing John Teal as the alternate and to authorize staff to prepare a resolution consistent with that action.
I'm just going to make that motion.
I'll move to approve. I didn't know if you had a question. No.
Okay, so we have Peterson and Rosa seconding, okay. And that motion passes unanimous.
Okay, that brings us to standing and ad hoc committees and liaison reports. Does anybody have anything?
We had an ops skating meeting on Monday. Julie, if you want to help me. It was a very well-informed, long 2-hour meeting. Went through a number of different items, including the status of the water system, sewer collection system, water treatment plant. A couple areas of concern that are being addressed.
Some water quality items on the water system. The crews have been struggling with chlorine depletion in some areas of the system, and so we're doing some additional research into how we might improve that situation, including increased flushing or decreased flushing depending on the area. We're looking into different tools to help them actually record the information and track it over time, and considering things like looping lines or automatic flushing stations, things like that. But this is a relatively new problem that is creeping up for us. We're trying to get a handle on why it might be occurring. It does seem to be occurring primarily on our aging steel lines and in areas that maybe have fewer occupants than they have in the past. So this will probably be a topic of conversation, moving forward. But we spent quite a bit of time talking about it on Monday.
This is just depleted chlorine, and you're not getting back T-hits or anything like that.
No, I think of all the samples they've taken, maybe only one had a hit of something, and it was still below the MCL. Yeah, I haven't been keeping up with the lab daily on kind of what the findings are. Primarily depleted chlorine.
Yeah, I just point out, there's still a lot of water systems in the state that are completely unchlorinated, some of the smaller ones. And so, the lack of a chlorine residual doesn't constitute a health and safety, violation. If you're getting bacteria, then that's a different story. So I don't know if we're sampling for that, but
yeah,
it's kind of a common phenomenon in dead-end streets, especially in a vacation place like this.
Yeah, I think some of the concerns are that we're getting chlorine, say at the tank site, that maybe in some, in one location in particular, it's only about a mile from the sampling point, and ample chlorine at the tank, but by the time it gets down to our sampling point, it's gone. So what's eating up that chlorine?
Yeah, and also got a report on that they are working through staff to update the capital improvement plan. So it's all going down, and then one of the things we talked about is maybe getting a presentation from the full board on kind of what's going on with the capital improvement plan and what kind of criteria are used to elevate or move projects around, and including looking at hotspots and complaints and things like that. We had talked about it, so maybe something else. We'll try to get those areas that have the squeaky wheel.
Yeah, we're looking for a date in early February for a board workshop on the capital improvement program, separate from the board workshop on the financials that'll come like a month later. So Last year, you'll recall, we kind of combined forces and did one workshop. I think we're going to separate them out so we can have a little bit more dedicated focus to each.
I guess kind of in that vein, when you do the CIP presentation, is there going to be a correlation between, I guess, what we'd be able to achieve given certain budgetary kind of considerations?
Yeah, what Paul and I have talked about is, we're preparing the plan that we believe that the system needs, and I'll give that to Paul, and he'll run some numbers and let me know, what that would look like for rate increases. What would be required in order to make that happen, and that's what I'll share with you, and then you guys can think about that and take it to the next step, which is talking about what rate increases do we actually want to move forward.
I guess is there going to, say, the plan you put forward recommends a 50% rate increase, and the board's appetite was less. So is there going to, again, be an understanding of kind of, either with Paul or at some later point, exactly what that does to the CIP project list and what we're able to achieve in the next 10 years?
Yeah, so once we know where you guys are landing on rates, then we go back in and we strip out projects from our plan, basically push things out, and then have a new plan that we present to you as part of the budget process.
Yeah, we're hoping during the CIP meeting that we will be able to get some sort of feel from the board as to what level of rate increases you might have an appetite for. And of course that can change, throughout the process, but at least kind of gives us a starting point. Put the budget together.
Well, I guess what I was thinking is just when the CIP presentation is going, having some indication of the items that could conceivably be on the chopping block would be very helpful for me.
Yeah.
Because it gives some context of, because at some level you're just talking about a percentage, but I'm not sure it goes from 12, you see what I'm saying, what that actually means and what we're getting rid of. And by the time that decision's made, it seems like the CIP would already been revised. So like having an understanding of kind of what would go, and I don't think it has to be terribly in depth, but just, provide a bit more context to, I think, the boards we're looking at.
I can definitely see that.
So it's not just whatever.
True, Gary just reminded me, whatever Julie presents to you and whatever various scenarios we have, they all have to be within the constraint of the current Prop 218 that's in effect. And we do have room in there for multiple scenarios because of how we issued the Prop 218 3 years ago when we issued it with specific maximum rates and not percentages. And since we didn't adopt rates the last 2 years, if you wanted to, you could adopt rates a lot higher than both the 5 on the sewer and the 6 on the water. So we do have, kind of a top and a bottom to work with.
Okay, no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Anybody else have a report? I attended virtually the ECC meeting yesterday. It was nice. There wasn't a lot of comments, and we got updated on COVID and staffing, so I don't want to ruin John's GM report. I don't want to spoiler alert. Yeah. But yeah, it seemed like it was a good meeting, and hopefully the next one maybe will be right in here in person.
Hope so. Next one.
In February. Yep. Okay, so that brings us to El Dorado Water Agency Purveyor report.
We had a meeting on the 10th, and their primary focus has been securing some grants, and we've been successful. The grants are really geared toward the American River watershed. A lot of the work of Dorado Water Agency is focused on the American River. We're attached to it, but we're not really their primary focus. They did have quite a bit of discussion on whether to continue their meetings as remote, and they have they are going to continue them as a remote. But a requirement is that the board resolved in each meeting that emergency still exists. And so that allows that to happen, but it's very efficient for John and I, because we can zoom in from up here and we don't have to drive down the classroom. So that's kind of nice.
And I'm hearing that there's a lot of stuff in the other one, Highway 50 right now. See, there's, they're doing as much work as they can.
Yeah. Some days a good day to drive down Highway 50.
Oh, is it? Is that the
Every other
day they
day,
take
yeah,
off?
yeah.
Oh, okay. Good to know.
So that's all I have to report. John, did you have anything to add on that?
Nothing yet. No, thanks.
Okay, Shelley.
Good afternoon, everyone. Happy to be in front of you, not talking about fire or COVID or anything like that, but just good old-fashioned water conservation. So today I'd like to provide an update on our water conservation program. As you know, the goal of the program is to save water, save money, and to meet ever-changing state mandates. So to understand our water conservation program, it's important to look at water production. This graph shows you the district's annual water production in millions of gallons from 1988 to 2020. You'll see the red, slightly downward sloping line shows that over the last 30 years, we've seen an average reduction of 18 million gallons per year. And we've talked about this in the past, but two big reasons for that are the launch of our water conservation program and the installation of water meters over the last 10 years. One thing I'd like to highlight on this graph is the water use efficiency law that was adopted in 2018. That's shown by that green bar. So California responded to that multi-year drought by passing SB 606 and AB 1668. And these laws aim to promote water use efficiency by setting target guidelines. And they'll go into effect come 2023. So we've been working really closely with the state, the Department of Water Resources, over the last few years to help develop guidelines that capture Tahoe's unique natures. So the law is a three-part law. The first part is an indoor water use standard. So it sets, the original proposal sets 55 gallons per person per day. And then it incrementally drops to 50 gallons come 2030. There's a new proposal out that DWR just released that ratchets it down from 50 to 42 gallons per person per day by 2030. So it's open for comment right now. They just put it out, and we'll be commenting on it as part of AQUA. The second aspect of the law is an outdoor standard. So that's based on climate and irrigated areas determined by drone imagery, aerial imagery. And due to our dense canopy cover, that doesn't work for us. So Jim Kelly and I have been meeting with the state multiple times over the last few months to come up with a modified method that will work for the district. And I just got off the call with the state right before the board meeting, and I feel like we're there. I think we've got an approach that fits the round hole into the round peg into the square hole to meet the state standard. And then the third is the standard for water loss due to leaks in the water system pipes that Steve has been really actively engaged with to make sure that the economics of it pan out. For us, it's very cheap to pump water up, and it's very expensive to repair leaks. So making sure that's captured in the model. So the law has teeth. It includes fining water districts between $1,000 to $10,000 per day if we don't meet the targets. And our water conservation program plays a critical role in helping us meet these efficiency standards as we continue to move forward. So I wanted to show you this graph. This is our annual water production. And as you can see, and you, I'm sure all know that water use more than doubles in summer months, and that's mainly due to landscape irrigation. So as such, our water conservation program focuses really heavily on that outdoor use. That includes our designated watering days, as well as a suite of services and rebates. So I'm just going to walk you through some of the stats from the last year to let you know that we've been busy and making people happy, hopefully. So when customers call with a high water bill, which is often the first time we talk to a customer, it's really great that we're able to offer them one of these 2 free services. So we have our free WaterWise landscape consultation, where we visit the property, turn on the irrigation system, and provide tips on how to adjust, replace sprinkler nozzles, as well as give tips on how to program their sprinklers. Seeing as our water use skyrockets in the summer, this is a really great program to achieve this. We did 89 of those this last year, despite the fire and COVID. Another really popular program is our WaterWise house call. This is where we go into a customer's home and can install water efficient fixtures, shower heads, aerators on faucets. And really we often end up there because they have a leak. We've notified them that they have a leak and they can't find the leak. So this is our way of meeting customers to try to help them come up with a strategy to lower their water bills, find and help fix those leaks. And we did 76 of those in this last year. So the LEAD program has really taken off. Now that we have meters and we're able to read them remotely, we use WaterSmart to automatically contact customers who have leaks. This program is managed by Jessica Henderson, and I think it's another reason why we're seeing this big reduction in water production. So over the last year, we've contacted over 4,000 customers, notifying them that they've had a leak, and to date, all but 8 have repaired them. So that's a great rate. In the past, before we had WaterSmart and meters, customers wouldn't know about a leak until quarterly when they got their bill. So we estimate that the water savings from this is around 26 million gallons annually because of the rapidness of contacting them and having them fix them right away. Timeliness. Rapidness is not the right word. You know what I'm talking about. So we also have a new leak rebate program. The challenge is that our water is relatively cheap, and so some of these fixes cost a lot of money to repair. And so we have a rebate of up to $500 to help offset those costs. 23 customers have taken advantage of this program so far at a rate of about $10,000. And the majority of those that applied, the leaks were really in that exterior service line. So that means you have to dig up to get to your, the service line to your home, fix it, fill it back in. So bigger money fixes than just a toilet flapper. And the estimated savings for that particular rebate program is about 4.6 million gallons. In addition to the free services, we also offer a suite of rebates. The turf buyback program is always really popular. We rebate $1.50 per square foot to replace turf, which is the most water-intensive landscape option with WaterWise landscaping. We did 23 of those this year with an estimated water savings around 770,000 gallons per year. I think pictures speak louder than words, so here's one property with a before and after. There's all sorts of, people take all sorts of different approaches. Here's another before or after approach. They did more veggie boxes and natives around the outskirts. And another before and after where you can see sometimes people are getting rid of shoddy lawns and sometimes they're getting rid of really beautiful ones to save water and repurpose their space. And finally, our other rebate programs continue to be really popular. We have the efficient toilet and clothes washer program. This year we streamlined it. The application is now online. We no longer require a W-9 form for folks for these rebates. So it makes it as easy for customers as possible, and we did 43 toilets and 69 clothes washers. And as we wait to see what the state decides on the water use efficiency standards and what our budget will be, I really believe that we have the right tools in our toolbox to continue promoting water conservation and meet those mandates coming down the pipe. Any questions?
Just a question, can you click back to the, I guess, the water production slide? Going back, we're looking at that trend.
This one or this one?
Oh, I have a question I'll talk to you. This
Okay.
one, I'm just curious, do you have like a per capita, kind of look at time series of how those things have been improving over time, and how does it look relative to what state standards are going?
Yeah, so one of the challenge for us for per capita is that, you guys know, half of our town, it consists of vacation homes or second homes. So, but it would be interesting, Shane, to look at the census data annually over these years to see if there's any correlation. The challenge is it misses that seasonal population, which has a big impact. In terms of the state standards, there's a variance for seasonal population. The entire variance is being based on us and another mountain community down in Southern California. I always forget if it's Pier or Arrowhead. So we provided all of our water use data for them to come up with a methodology for identifying which homes are seasonally occupied, how much water they have, to try to add it into the calculation of, 50 gallons per person per day times your census data. So that'll be a big part of meeting the standards. Did I answer your question?
So we don't have a good idea of like the per capita use of water today, or we don't have a good sense.
Yes, so, I didn't present it just because it's not final. The state is still deciding what they're going to adopt. But the current proposal for the gallons per person per day for that indoor use, plus the variance for seasonal population, we're below the standard.
Incidentally, there's another class of community that has a similar problem, that's industrial communities, and they have very low population, but very high demands. And when they boil it down to per capita, they don't have very big capitas, so it makes it look like they're wasting a bunch of water, but they have the same type of situation.
Yeah, we are fortunate to be working, I am on a first name cell phone basis with many people at DWR to make sure that the unique nature of we're in the mountains, we have dense forest canopy cover, we have seasonal population, we have abundant and very cheap water that is very expensive to fix leaks in, that those issues are being captured in the standards and the methodologies that they're looking for those.
And then on your next slide, I was just curious on the seasonal variation. So I'm just curious, what's the time frame this average is calculated based on? Is it like a?
Yeah, so this is this year's monthly production.
Okay. So this is what we did this year?
Is that right,
So it's not an
John?
average.
When the lab sends out their monthly water numbers?
Yeah, it should be for this past year.
Yeah, it's for this past year.
Well, it's showing December, so maybe not.
I think I took last year's. I took the full year, 2020.
Yeah, that's probably right, because I was looking at August, September, those would probably look a lot different
Yeah.
this year.
Yeah. This year we did see, actually we saw an uptick this year in our spring numbers. And I think it's because we had so many more people living here full time with COVID and turning off on sprinkler systems earlier.
Yeah, I guess it would be nice to see what that variance looks like, and if there is any kind of trend seasonally in reduction in water use.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never looked at that, Shane. That'd be interesting. I'll check that out.
I had a question on the WaterWise house calls.
Mhm.
Are we still coordinating those, or how do we coordinate those, if at all, with energy audits?
Yeah, so we used to, Liberty Utilities and the district hired the same consultant to do their house calls. which was great because then it's a double bang for your buck, right? One person goes out, they're installing light bulbs, giving you energy tips, as well as installing aerators and shower heads. Liberty has chosen to utilize a different contractor, and so I've been in talks with them about to see how that ends up going. They're paying more for this new contractor, and so every time I run into Jennifer, we talk about it. I wanted to give them a year to see how they like their new contractor, and we're looking at trying to figure out, do we keep the same contractor as is? Do we bring this service in-house? This is the first year we're going to be hiring a full-term AmeriCorps water educator. Could we have our people do it? If it's someone that, when you bring it in-house, we know exactly when it's scheduled, what they did, what they followed up on. Or do we want to add more money to the budget to be a part, to utilize the same contractor as Liberty? So to be determined on what that program will look like in the future.
Thanks. On the house calls, there was one other category for the indoor audits. Is that offered to all sewer customers too?
Yes. Our services, our WaterWise landscape consultation and WaterWise house calls are for all customers, whether you're water or sewer. Our rebates, the toilet, clothes washer, and turf buyback program, we changed them this year to be just for our customers. In the past, throughout the year, since the water conservation program was established in 2007, sometimes it's 100% grant funded, sometimes it's not. And so when it's grant funded, we're able to, normally we apply for that grant collectively with our other water utilities. And so we can offer those, we can just be the clearinghouse for how those rebates get processed. For the last few years, that hasn't been covered in rebates for the grant, by grants. And so because of that, we switched it to the rebates only being available for water customers. Whereas our services, those are paid, we pay for our water efficiency technician and our WaterWise house call contract through a grant that we apply for with regional partners.
It would seem to me that the indoor water use, the bulk of the cost to the district is on the sewer side.
Right.
I'm not sure exactly the balance, but I would theorize that 1/3 of the cost is water and 2/3 the sewer side.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to pump it out of the district and everything every gallon. So to me, it would make sense that toilet rebates and washing machine rebates benefit the sewer side as well. So I'm not kind of questioning wallowing out that.
I misspoke. We changed things this year, and I put everyone into it. Toilets and clothes washers are still eligible for all of our sewer customers. Thank you for the correction. It's just our turf buyback program that we changed to only be available for our water customers. Thank you for clarifying that. Because you're right, for all those reasons.
I was wondering when plans come in for plan check, is there an educational opportunity at that point to interface with people to let them know about kind of what opportunities exist? I would say both in terms of internal and external for WaterWise. Because I guess the way I would look at it is, at some level, the first contractor, obviously he's probably in with his plans, not going to revise, how those things go, but you begin the educational process there and the opportunities. And I would say, again, just especially from our second homeowners, I think there's an opportunity from turf reductions. Everyone knows my feelings on turf. Tahoe soils are terrible for turf, but we'll just leave it there. But beyond that, in all seriousness, it's that people that don't live there currently. Natural kind of zero-scape landscaping is just much easier to maintain. And so, if you're going to be there sporadically, having something easy to maintain seems beneficial. But just kind of, like anything else, there's just so many things going on in the world, it's hard to know what to do. Like, I feel that in a lot of different spaces I'm in. So any way we can convey that, I think plan check would be a really kind of good opportunity to kind of, and I don't think it has to be overboard, but you can see where I'm going with it. This is an idea.
That's a good idea, Nick. I think one of the things that we could do is we send out a welcome letter every time new construction happens, so that could be something that we could add to that letter as well.
Another thought I had, based on your suggestion, is when the customer is putting in the request for a fire flow analysis for their fire system, we send them back a letter that tells them, basically what the situation is at their location. We could just add a paragraph to that, template that makes them aware of the services that are available to help them, develop water conserving.
Yeah, that's a great idea. We do that for new customers. When people buy a home, they get in their intro letter, we include our, brochures on our water conservation program and winterizing homes. I get so many calls about winterizing homes from second homeowners who are new to it. But incorporating it in those other two spaces gets that kind of new construction or remodel aspect of it.
Well, because I think a lot of people would incorporate elements like this in just inherently, but just don't think about it. So just to kind of raise the attention of it.
Good idea. Okay. Thank you, Shelley. Yeah, thank you.
Helen?
All right, got a few items here, starting with the staffing update. 3 positions for the grant specialist position. We interviewed 6 on Monday, all actually really good candidates. The interview panel did make a selection, and we're now in the pre-employment process. For pump station operator, our advertisement closed November 8th, and we're currently reviewing 28 applications, so it looks like a really good turnout on this. We have 1 internal candidate, and interviews will be early December, it looks like. And then I have 1 new item since yesterday. Just today, we started a posting advertising for an open crew position in underground repair water. We've been short here on this crew for a while since someone there transferred to underground repair sewer. So this will advertise through December 8th with interviews coming in early January. Moving on to COVID, we have no employees out for any reason due to COVID. So that's right, great news. And it's been a while since we had to completely say that, but nobody out for any reason due to COVID. And as you know, I've been reporting for a number of board meetings now. We've been waiting on OSHA to release their vaccine and testing requirements for large employers, including the district. And actually not sure if these will actually be enacted. Just getting some information today and from yesterday. The U.S. OSHA has just suspended their vaccine and testing mandate based on a court decision at the 5th Circuit Court of Appeals, which issued a stay on this requirement. And so OSHA intends to follow the federal guidance, which is now being held up. So I think we're waiting to see what legal process will play out there. That's all I have on COVID today. And next, the Tahoe Water Partnership and Tahoe Fire and Fuels Team. The Tahoe Water Partnership, this is part of our collaboration efforts with Tahoe City and North Tahoe PD. And just wanted you to know that we continue to work together on a number of fronts, trying to bring more funding for fire infrastructure to the basin and to the wildland urban interface. The 3 of us, we recently met with TRPA on this issue. We really wanted to have more water infrastructure projects added to the Environmental Improvement Program. And of course, the Lake Tahoe Restoration Act provides a lot of funding for the EIP projects. So get our projects in there, look to get more funding through the Lake Tahoe Restoration Act. And now the Tahoe Fire and Fuels Team, this team makes recommendations to TRPA for such funding priorities on the EIP. This group, the TFFT, includes TRPA, CPC, a lot of area fire chiefs and regional water utilities. And we're now working, the 3 of us are working with the TFFT to refine projects and refine priorities to facilitate more funding for waterline projects.
Can I just throw something at the end of that?
Yes,
Something that was referenced at the end of the last board meeting by Chris, I wish he was here, was the concept of biofuels. And so kind of going to the fuel side of this, there's everyone that's driven through Highway 50, I'm kind of, we're dealing with a huge volume of fuel just in our immediate backyard and beyond. Working with private sources in the community, both having a repository here and some other places as a backup fuel source makes a lot of sense. It's literally like an ending supply of material. And again, it just makes a lot of sense. And so having those conversations and other things, seeing how we can look to kind of utilize these partnerships to advance that if at all possible.
Yeah, I've talked to South Tahoe Refuse about a possible partnership that we're, I think, available to be a partner in whatever efforts, community efforts we see. We've talked to Lake Tahoe Community College just to see if they had any biomass projects in the mix. It sounds like not really at this time, but again, we're reaching out to South Tahoe Refuse, the Community College, CTC, and the Forest Service that if you have a project, we're willing to listen and be a partner with them.
Do you think TFFT might be kind of interested in that? I guess it's part of the larger conversation, whether or not those types of projects might land themselves in the ELP.
Yeah, talking to Forrest Schaefer at CTC, he kind of leads this TFFT group, so I think he'll connect the dots if there are dots to connect with that group.
It really seems like an opportunity for us, both in terms of redundancy, but also just in terms of kind of aiding forest management here kind of locally and regionally. Both in terms of the fire impacts now, but then I would say further, into the future, looking to kind of safeguard us against kind of the next fire event as well. And so take those fuels that we're going to be removing and make benefit of it.
Right. Okay, yeah, thanks for those comments. We'll continue to coordinate with our community partners. And actually, I have no Tom Keys update today. So, you get to stay. You did the bag already, sorry. Flip-flops on, bag bag. So, Kelly, that's all I have today.
Okay, so I guess that will take us into closed session. The closed session is an open session with nothing to report. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, Chris.